This is 2D Design with Rob Colvin. We are continuing to work on our form assignments. With this assignment, we are creating a cylinder similar to this. So I'm going to walk you through creating clipping masks so that your process in painting that cylinder will be much quicker. So I am going up to File and New. And I want this to be in inches, and I want it to be 5 by 5 inches and 150 pixels an inch. I want it in RGB 8-bit, and I want my background to be white. I'll click OK. A cylinder is basically a rectangle, so I'm going to get my rectangular marquee tool and make a rectangle. Then I will make a new layer, and then I will get my paint bucket. You will find it underneath the gradient tool. And I will choose a color to fill my rectangle and click and fill. Our cylinder will need an ellipse for the top and bottom. First we will make the top ellipse. We will select our elliptical marquee tool. I will click and drag across the top to create an ellipse for my cylinder. Next I want a new layer for that ellipse. I will press G for the paint bucket and select a warmer lighter value of green. Then I will do Command D to deselect and press V for my move tool and nudge it over a bit with the arrow keys. Then I want to copy this layer. I'll do Command J and I'll move this ellipse down. Then I will do Command T to adjust the ellipse, and I'll press Option as I pull on the top, and it also pulls the bottom. Now I will go over to that layer and press Command and click on the window. Press G for the paint bucket. Press Option to select the color, and then I will fill up that shape with the same color. I see that I have a few pixels that did not get filled in with the paint bucket. I can fix that later, but first I'm going to pull this layer down and do Command E and merge those two layers into one. I will press B for brush and fill in those pixels. Next I'm going to press Command and select layer 1 and 2 so I can move them together as one. I'm going to move it up a bit for my value scale, and I need to pinch it, so I'm going to do Command T and pull down so I can pinch it and move it up to fit my value scale. Now I will get my marquee tool to make my value scale layer. I want it to be 0.75 in height. I will select the background layer, put a layer on top of that, get my paint bucket by pressing G. I will fill it with the same color as the cylinder. Now I'm going to select these two layers together again by pressing Command and clicking on them. I'm going to nudge them up with the Move tool and then do Command T to pinch it to get a better fit. I want to make my shadow layer with the polygonal tool. I will select that underneath the lasso tool. I will use my polygonal tool to create a shape for the cast shadow. It is cast off on the back side of that cylinder. Press G for the paint bucket and select the color. This cool blue will do. I want a new layer for that shadow. I will make a new layer and fill it. Now I need to make clipping masks for each layer. So I'll start with my value scale. Remember, I will make another layer. I will press Option or Alt on your PC and hover between the two and click, and I have a clipping mask. Now I'll go to my shadow and I'll make a new layer, and I will press Option or Alt and I will hover between the two and click, and I have a clipping mask. I will select my cylinder. I will make another layer. I will press Option or Alt and hover between the two, and I have a clipping mask. I will select my top and make a new layer and press Option or Alt, and I have clipping masks, and I will title each one to keep them straight. Remember, you can double click on the lettering and change it, so give each layer a title to help keep them straight. Next we want to save it as a PSD. You might as well put your name on it because you're going to be submitting it with your name on it, but you will submit it as a JPEG when you complete the full cylinder. I took a closer look at my shadow edge, and it's jagged, So I want to soften that edge. I want to make sure I have the shadow layer chosen, not the shadow mask, the shadow layer. Now I'm going to filter and I'm down to blur, to Gaussian blur again, and 1.5 looks like what I want. So I'll click OK. I will choose my brush by pressing B, and I'm going to make sure I have the soft round brush. So I do. I'm going to right click on the image. I want my hardness set at 0 and the brush is round. And I want to set my flow up here to, in the 70s somewhere. And I want my opacity to be around 70. So I got it at 67. That will work. Next thing I want to make sure is I picked the right layer, so I am going to choose the cylinder mask layer to begin painting. So one thing I want to suggest before you start painting is keep your image about this size while you paint. If it's really big like this, it's going to be harder for you to paint. So you want it, about that big on the screen, or this size would do. Now I want to start painting. I'll make my brush bigger by pressing on the right bracket key. Want it about that size. I'm going to choose the color on top by pressing Option and clicking. Now I want to paint my highlight area, which is right here. What I will start doing is click at the top, and then after I have clicked, I will press Shift, and I will move down to the bottom and click again while holding Shift. I'll continue to hold Shift and click at the top and go back and forth while I hold Shift. Then I can move the brush over a bit and click, and then press Shift again and click. Hold Shift while I move back and forth, and I move my highlight over a tad more. I can go over to this left side, click at the top, press Shift, and click down at the bottom. Click at the top while holding Shift and back and forth while holding Shift. I can click right here, hold Shift and click again and start evening out my transition. So you can see I'm getting the area for my highlight. You look over here on the cylinder mask, you see the paint that has been added, and that mask is masking only to cover the cylinder area. So that's why masking is so helpful. So I'm adding more to my highlight by clicking, pressing Shift, and going up and down. I'm going to choose a darker value as I move into my shadow, and I'm going to shift it more towards blue. And I'm going to click right above here and press Shift and click. And click a little there, above there, and I think that's too far. So I'm going to press Option and choose in between the right here, and I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller. I'm going to click above, press Shift. So I'm trying to smooth out my transitions. Click, Shift, click. I want to work towards my highlight, so I'm going to press Option, pick that lightest value there and shift towards white over here. But I'm going to shift towards yellow, so I have a warmer green, maybe not that warm. And I will click up above here with the stylus and press Shift and click below. Continue to press Shift and click above. Continue to press Shift, click below. And again, I'm going to press Option and pick a color in between. Click up here, press Shift, click below. I'm going to choose a color in between there. Click above, press Shift, click below, click above, click below. And I might have gone too far with that one, so it's a lot of back and forth. So I'm going to choose this highlight again. I am going to move towards white, move a little bit towards yellow again. and click, press shift and clicked again, and holding shift to get still, holding shift still. I decided I want my highlight much brighter, so I'm going to choose a color in between those, click, choose, well, I got that color already, so I'm going to click, shift, click, continue to hold shift, choose a color there, I will click, press shift and click, choose a color in between there, I will click, press shift and click, click again, choose that highlight, and I'm going to click, press shift and click. So I'm going to choose a value here and make my brush a little bit bigger. I'm going to click, press shift and click. Now I'm going to make my brush smaller. And I'm going to choose this color first, and I'm going to move towards white again. I'm going to move towards yellow for a warmer white. I'm going to click above where my highlight's going to be and click, hold shift and click again, hold shift, continue to hold shift. And I will choose a color in between. I'm going to click above there and hold shift and go back and forth. Same color, click, press shift and click, click. I'm going to do this highlight again. So you can get a nice transition that way by choosing colors in between. I want to avoid stripes unless your object has stripes. You want to try and get a smooth transition by picking colors in between stripes. So I think I like that. I need a reflected light edge there, so I will pick, back to brush, I will pick that value and I'm going to move towards a lighter shade, lighter value. I'm going to click right on this. I think I'll make my brush one step bigger. I will click and press shift and click at the bottom. So I'm going back and forth while holding shift, putting in that reflected light. I'm going to move over one step and click and press shift and click again. I want a little bit lighter value. I'm going to click on the edge, press shift and click. Then I will click above here and there I have my reflected light with my core shadow. I look at my cast shadow. I'm going to choose that shadow layer and I'm going to do Command U and I get my hue and saturation. What I want to do here is I think I want to lighten up my cast shadow to separate the value between my reflected light and my cast shadow so that my edge here does not get lost in the shadow. So I'll click OK. So I will choose my top mask right here, and I'm going to press B for brush. I'm going to make my brush bigger. I'm going to choose this value here. So the light's coming from this direction. So the light would be hitting the top surface, and it would be the lightest surface. So I am going to click around the edge there. It will be the darkest at the rear of this cylinder. So I'm going to give it one more, maybe two more Now I'm going to click on the actual top, not the mask, at the top, and I'm going to press Command and I'm going to click. See, I have selected that shape. Next, I want to pick the top mask and put a new layer on top of that. So now I'm going to go to Edit and I'm going to stroke that edge around there so I can get a highlight edge. But I'll want to choose a brighter, lighter color for that highlight. Probably want to move more towards yellow, maybe a little bit lighter. Can always be fixed. I'll click OK, and I want that edge probably to be, let's try 2 pixels, and I want it to be in the center. Click OK. So I'll do Command D to deselect. So you can see I have a highlight edge, but there's not going to be a highlight around the back. So I'm going to press E for eraser, and I want my eraser to be bigger, so I'll press the right bracket key, and I'm going to reduce the flow to around 70, and I'm going to reduce the opacity down to around 40. I will begin erasing that highlight edge on the shadow side of the cylinder. As I erase, it looks a little too hard-edged with my eraser, so I'm going to right-click and I get this window. I want my hardness to be at 0. That way I get a softer blend as I try to erase that highlight around that side. So I'll finish it up. Now I'm going to pick my shadow mask layer, and I'm going to press Option and pick the color in my shadow. And I'm going to make that value a little bit lighter. I'm going to reduce my opacity to around 40. I'm going to paint in that shadow because it's going to get lighter as it transitions that direction. I'm going to choose my scale mask layer now, and I'm going to begin painting my value scale. So I'm going to press Option and click on my lightest value on the cylinder, and I'm going to go over to my colors and pick a lighter value towards white. And I'm going to come over here, and I think I'll make my brush a bit smaller. I'll press the left bracket key. So I will begin painting in my lightest value. And then I will press Option again. I will pick a color in between. Go there a few times. Pick another color, a little bit darker. A little bit darker value. And move towards a darker value. I think I went. So I'm moving more towards my dark value. And I can pick in between here, like we're there, and smooth that out. I can pick in between there and smooth that out. Try to smooth your transition out so it's nice and even. And there we have a finish value scale. And all we need to do now is our background. So I will choose the background, but I'm going to put another layer on top of that. And I'm going to press B for brush, and I'm going to make my brush bigger. I will choose that shadow color. Go across the top there, and I can see something I need to fix. First, I might do it one more time. So see that backside edge of that ellipse that we highlighted. That was our layer up here. I need to erase that, so I'm going to press E for erase, and I'm going to make my eraser smaller, and I can up the opacity because we don't need it at all back there. And now we have a finished cylinder. So now we are going to go to File and Save As. I will save it as a PSD with my name on it and put a number 2 to separate it from my original clipping mask file before I started painting. Now we want to go to Layer and Flatten Image and back to File and Save As. A JPEG with your name on it to submit for the assignment. Please put your name on it. Just one more thing. I don't like my coloring, so I'm going to do Command U and I get hue and saturation. If you don't know where that is, let's click cancel and go to image, then down to adjustments, then down to hue and saturation where it says Command U. Then I can grab my saturation and push it up and enrich, enliven, saturate the colors to where I like it. Once I get it where I like it, I click OK and I do Command S to save it and submit it for the assignment.